Namaskar. I'm Assistant Professor Kritika Dev from LJ School of Law. Today, the topic or the topic of the session, let me not reveal the topic to you. Let me give you just one simple example. First, say you just go out for shopping one day, or you go out on dinner or any place. And now, while going, you keep your wallet in your back pocket, right? You're keeping your wallet in your back pocket, and suddenly somebody, without, of course, your knowledge and your concern, just takes your pocket or just takes your wallet and runs. What is that situation? What would that, what will we call that very thing? Yes, you are correct. We call it theft. So the topic for today's session is theft. It is not as simple as it appears. This is just the very basic examples. We're going to see a number of examples and we are going to get complete clarity about the very topic. So here, as you can see on your screen, the term is being defined under section 378 of the Indian Penal Code. Now, as you can see the definition on your screens as well, let's read the definition. Whoever intending to take dishonestly any movable property out of the possession of any person without that person concerned moves that property in order to such taking is said to commit theft. Now, the example was so simple, wasn't it? But the definition is long enough to get confused. But as I always mention, we have the ingredients to help us out. Now, what are the ingredients? Let's have a look. Okay. Before moving to the ingredients, this is the example that I quoted, right? That somebody is taking away the wallet from your pocket, and that is what is theft in general, right? These are some of the very basic examples that we know. Somebody takes your purse or just takes away your, snatches your chain, anything like that. We term that as theft, right? Nothing in detail till date. But now we are going to read the term in detail. So the very first ingredient, here we'll discuss each and every ingredient one by one, rather than just listing them in one slide and discussing them together. So here we'll discuss them one by one. So the first ingredient here is the dishonest intention. So under theft, the very essential and the very first element is the dishonest intention. So when you are taking away a property, there has to be a dishonest intention. Now you must be thinking, it is very simple to define theft. When somebody takes your wallet, of course, that person must have had the dishonest intention. Now, what is there to mention under a section like this? Now, let me give you one very simple example. First, say if somebody has the uh, you have a library, okay, and there you offer somebody or you have an implied consent. You just tell your friend that whenever you come, you can just take any of my books. Okay, you have consented. You have given this very permission to only one of your friends. Okay, now that very friend comes and that very person has a very basic intention. Of course, he had or he has in mind that he has the or he has your implied consent to take books from your library, right? So now what will happen here? So as I said, your friend had the impression that he has your implied consent, and then he takes one of your book to his place. Now this is one example. Now the other friend also, right? He had no implied consent and he comes to your library and takes your book, one of your book or number of your books. Now, when it comes to the very first example, that person had no dishonest intention because he felt that he has your consent. Therefore, his intention wasn't dishonest. But when it comes to the other friend of taking some of your books from the library, from your library, without having any of an implied consent, then in this situation, your other friend had the dishonest intention. I hope with this example we are clear about the dishonest intention. Now let's move on to the very next ingredient, movable property. Now, when it comes to theft, it is very simple to keep in mind that theft can be committed only of movable properties. It could be committed against movable properties, not immovable properties. Can you actually can you actually make house a subject of theft? You cannot take somebody's house and can keep it and hide it somewhere, right, without somebody's consent. So theft cannot be committed against immovable property. The subject matter of theft has to be movable properties, right? Very simple to understand. Okay, let's move on to the next ingredient. This was simple in nature. Okay, the next ingredient of the section is, oh, okay, right, I'm so sorry, yes, the next one is out of the possession. So the property must be taken out of the possession of the person. The first example, taking away that very purse, or taking away somebody's ring, taking away somebody's cash, any antique, right? So it has to be out of the possession of that person. Now, as soon as we'll be done with the ingredients, we are going to have number of examples, okay, with which we'll understand what theft is exactly. So it has to be out of the possession. Now, this is a very interesting and important ingredient. I'll quote a very simple example, but yet interesting. Property must be moved in order to such taking. Now, what do we understand by that? Now, let me give you one example. First, say you throw a party at your place, a simple general party. There you call number of your friends, number of relatives, or anybody in the party. Now, suddenly you notice that a antique at your table, or your corner table, is missing. Now, whosoever took that very antique, let's suppose there was a party at Mr. X place or Mr. Y's place, and Mr. A took the antique. Now, Mr. Y, of course, announced that my antique is missing and I will check everybody before leaving this house. Mr. A got scared. Now, what he did not take anything, he did not take the antique out of the house. He actually just tried to hide that antique behind or below Y's bed, or any of the place, maybe the cupboard, or maybe the bed, or maybe the sofa, anywhere. He just tried to hide that antique, but he did not take it home. Now everything just got sorted, and of course Mr. Y could not find his was unable to find the antique because it wasn't there in anybody's pocket. It was small. Now in this very situation, everybody left the places, and here Mr. A had in mind that when some other day when I'll come, when he will be under the impression that nothing was, now I cannot find my antique, so he will be relaxed and calm, and then I will come and will take that very antique. But that very night, he did not take the antique to his house. Now, will that amount to theft? Will that be an offense? Because he did not take anything out of the house of Mr. Y. Think, take 5 seconds and think about it. Okay, let me tell it to you. Even though he did not take the antique out of the house of Mr. Y, but he committed theft because of this very ingredient. Property must be moved. The place of the antique, according to Mr. Y, was the corner table, right? According to him, the antique has to be there at the corner table. Now, Mr. A moved that very antique in order to such taking, though later on he could not take it. But according to Mr. Y, the property is not being found. It means it had been the subject of theft. So, according to Mr. Y, the antique is not there, and Mr. A, with the dishonest intention, without the consent of Mr. Y, he moved it, right? He moved the very article, he moved that very antique out of the possession of Mr. Y. So in this case also he committed theft because he moved it, and he had in mind that when I'll come for the next time, I'll take this very antique and I'll take it home, or I'll sell it, or whatever it is, right? So this is a very important ingredient which makes this very section very interesting. Okay, now let's see the very other ingredient: without the consent of the other party. Of course, this whole section is revolving around this very point, that it is without the consent of the owner. If there had been the consent of the owner, then it would have not amounted to theft, because there was consent from the side of the owner. Okay, um, I'm extremely sorry for this. Okay, fine. So here we are with the punishment. So here the imprisonment is up to 3 years. So maximum 3 years, minimum could be anything, or fine, or with both. So this is the amount of imprisonment. And with reading the imprisonment and everything, I guess when we had gone through the ingredients, it must have got clear in your mind that it has to be, firstly, it has to, one must have the dishonest intention, right? It has to be relating to a movable property. Theft cannot be committed when it comes to an immovable property. There has to be a movable property, and there has to be a movement. The property must have been moved in order to such taking, right? Forget about the later on situation, but even if it has been moved, it amounts to theft, and it has to be without the consent of the owner. Because if there is concern, there is no offense at all. So with this, we end the session, and I hope all of your concepts are clear. And as I always say, keep reading, keep studying, keep revising, and see you in the next session. Thank you.